My brother called his Christmas gifts trash, so our parents sold them in front of him, my brother. Leo wasn't just entitled, he was a walking, talking black hole of gratitude every Christmas. It was the same show, a performative display of disgust followed by a demand for something more, something better. Our parents, usually so soft, let him get away with it for years, terrified of his explosive tantrums, but this year a line was crossed. A sacred unspoken rule shattered. And the consequence wasn't just a grounding, it was a public humiliation. A lesson delivered with surgical precision, right on our opulent living room floor. Leo's entitlement wasn't born overnight, it was cultivated. Fertilized by years of parental appeasement. From the age of 5, if he didn't get exactly what he wanted, the house became a war zone. My parents, high-powered executives in the financial sector accustomed to controlling boardrooms, found themselves utterly disarmed by their youngest son's unpredictable rages. They let him dictate everything, family vacations to luxury resorts, the brand of designer sneakers he demanded, even which private school I attended. It was surreal, watching to people who commanded respect in multi-million-dollar deals crumble under the tyranny of a 9-year-old, but that was our reality. Then, they finally decided to draw a line. Leo was 13. He demanded a vintage, limited edition Rolex Daytona not because he appreciated horology, but because his rival, Liam, at his exclusive academy had gotten one. My mother, Maria, explained gently that a watch of that caliber was out of the question. For a Christmas gift, in response, Leo snatched her antique silver locket, a family heirloom from her grandmother, and threw it with surprising force against the marble fireplace, shattering its delicate filigree. My mother gasped, a quiet, wounded sound, but instead of giving in, she just stood there, her face pale but resolute. That's when Leo escalated. He looked my father, David, straight in the eye, his voice chillingly calm. If I don't get that watch, he sneered, I'll tell the dean you hit me. I'll tell the police. My parents went stark white. The next 7 months were a silent hell. They tried to pacify him without completely capitulating, buying him expensive gadgets and clothes. But never the watch, of course. It was never enough for him. He finally made good on his threat after our parents took us on a planned ski trip to Aspen. Not the private chalet in Verbier he demanded. I remember coming home 3 weeks later to find a social worker, Ms. Reynolds, sitting in our polished mahogany kitchen, meticulously documenting the contents of our first aid kit and questioning our housekeeper. Leo sat on a silk sofa, a faint, badly drawn bruise visible on his arm, weaving a fabricated tale of parental abuse. The investigation dragged on for 3 excruciating weeks. Ms. Reynolds, a sharp, experienced professional, noted the extravagant gaming setup in Leo's room, the inconsistent details in his story about when the alleged injuries occurred, and his increasingly agitated demeanor. The case was ultimately closed with a note citing inconclusive evidence and inconsistent testimony. But the damage to our family, to the trust, was already done. This all built up to my birthday morning this past year. I had simply asked my parents for a new, high-quality camera lens, as mine was cracked and barely functional. Leo, however, had explicitly told our parents, blow my mind, nothing less, and so they seemingly did. When my birthday morning arrived, I unwrapped a state-of-the-art professional prime lens, a couple of rare photography books, and a beautifully crafted leather camera bag. Then it was Leo's turn. He received a brand new, top-tier racing drone with VR goggles, a custom-built, liquid-cooled gaming PC with all the trimmings, a collection of exclusive, signed streetwear sneakers he'd coveted for months, and a limited-edition collectible action figure. Yet, with each luxurious package, he'd rip the wrapping paper, glance at the item with disdain, and toss it aside onto the expensive Persian rug like it was actual refuse. After all the gifts were opened, not a single thank you left his lips. He just stomped off to his room. 30 minutes later, he reappeared, his phone clutched in his hand, the calculator app open. He'd looked up the retail price of every single one of his gifts, adding them up meticulously. Then he looked up the price of my camera lens. His total was $750 less than mine. He stood there, a vein throbbing in his temple, screaming that this was undeniable proof he was the forgotten child, the one perpetually shortchanged, and I was the golden favorite who always got everything. He then had the audacity to stride into the dining room where Dad was pouring celebratory mimosas, and tried to snatch his corporate credit card from his wallet, intending to buy $750 worth of merchandise online to even the score. My parents, who by this point had reached their absolute breaking point, their faces grim and set, simply stated, "No." My father's voice was low, laced with a dangerous calm. "Leo, you are not getting any more money, and there will be severe consequences if you try anything foolish." Leo's face went scarlet. He roared that his presents were cheap, unwanted trash anyway. Before anyone could react, he lunged not for his own discarded gifts, but for my brand new camera lens still sitting on the polished credenza with a sickening crunch. He slammed it down onto the hard oak floor, shattering it into a dozen irreparable pieces. Glass fragments sprayed across the room like shrapnel. The opulent living room fell silent, the cheerful Christmas music suddenly feeling sacrilegious. My mother, a woman who rarely raised her voice, a former high-ranking detective whose composure was legendary, stood up slowly when she bellowed his full name, Leonard Alexander Sterling. I swear the very foundations of the house trembled. It was the first time I had ever seen pure, unadulterated fear flash across Leo's face. He turned and bolted, slamming his bedroom door shut and locking it. I knelt, picking up the shattered remnants of my lens, hot tears blurring my vision. While my parents retreated to the study, their voices low and intense. About an hour later, they emerged, their faces etched with a grim determination. They walked directly to the scattered pile of Leo's expensive, discarded gifts on the living room floor and began methodically gathering them. I asked them what they were doing. My voice barely a whisper, my father looked at me, his eyes resolute. What we should have done years ago, son. Before I could fully process it, they were online, posting every single item on a high-end resale platform, each listing meticulously photographed. Within 4 hours, every single piece of trash was gone. The racing drone sold within minutes. Someone drove 3 hours from another county for the custom gaming PC. They recouped every dollar. And then some. Leo was still holed up in his room. My parents called him out. He emerged, a baseball bat clutched in his hand, his eyes wild. My mother, with the practiced efficiency of a police officer, calmly disarmed him, grabbing his wrist and wrenching the bat away. This confrontation happened in the grand hallway, the scene playing out for all to see. Then he walked into the living room. His presents were gone. In their place, a significant stack of crisp $100 bills lay on the antique coffee table. But there was one more thing. A website glowed on the screen of my father's laptop, a renowned juvenile behavioral correction institute, a place known for its rigorous program for troubled youth. What the hell is, Leo began, his voice laced with his usual indignation. Shut up and listen. My mother cut him off, her voice like steel. This, she gestured to the laptop, is where you'll be spending the next 6 months, starting next week. And this, she tapped the stack of cash on the table, is to replace the camera lens you so carelessly destroyed. Now, pick it up, hand it to your brother, go upstairs, and do not come down until you are called. Leo's face went ashen, all the fight draining out of him as he finally understood the gravity of his actions. The sight of his trash sold, the money replacing what he destroyed, and the chilling reality of his future laid bare, finally broke through. Our parents had finally stopped being afraid, and in that moment, the entitlement died. Remember to subscribe for more stories of justice served and unexpected consequences.